Hi, this is Sam Botstein from MachineSkills.com. Make sure to subscribe to us on YouTube for all our machine tutorials, and check us out at MachineSkills.com. In this tutorial, we're going to take a look at how to make riser or build-up sounds using only the built-in effects, drum synths, and the built-in machine sampler. We've covered how to make riser sounds with numerous different synths across our different sites in the ADSR network, but this is a quick and easy way you can accomplish this type of sound using just the built-in machine plugins. Here's what our finished sound could sound like. So you'll notice that this lasts a perfect 4 bars at our tempo, and that it really cleanly builds up from complete silence all the way to the peak volume that we're looking for. You can make these sounds as complicated or as simple as you'd like. The most simple, I think, being just the reversed sound of some white noise into a reverb. Here's how this particular sound was made. I built it out of a snare sound called the POW Scoop. It is one of the presets available in Machine's instruments under Machine 2, under drums, and under snare. You actually have the ability to load up this particular preset that I built this entire thing on top of. Now I've set the 4 knobs to approximately these settings just for the noise content. So I'm going to disable all the effects that I've put on here just so we can hear it. You'll notice that this particular drum synth engine doesn't have any advanced parameters. There's a modulation option with the scale and whatnot. We're just going to leave that as is. We're just going to play one note. So the way that this sounds by itself is like this. So we already have some of the contour we're looking for. It has sort of a noisy sound that starts focused and ends, really broad and noisy. Of course, when it's reversed, it'll have the opposite sort of sound. Now, here I have the tune up really high, because when you have it lower, we're not getting the high frequency content we're looking for. I have the decay all the way up, because anything less than 100%, it's just going to be way too short to work with. The bend control is very important here. So if we loaded up the preset, it would be like this. This is what the untouched preset sounds like. When you turn up the decay, it starts to come into life a little bit. However, that sound is not ideal. With the bend at negative 100%, we get this cool ramp down. And that's what we're using. Now, the most important element to add on top of this is the reverb. I like the metaverb. The metaverb is the best because it doesn't give too much content that might clash with any harmonic content that you have in the rest of your track. So this rings out for a long time. The reason that I put a beat delay before the metaverb is for a kind of a pumping effect. You can get this using a sidechain compressor, and we show you how to do that in many other tutorials. But it helps to have some actual content from the original sound. So this is a beat delay effect. We're going to sort of hear the way that it works. So, of course, we'll hear this reversed. It's going to sound a lot different. But we have a distinct rhythm that's actually happening. It'll get lost a little bit, maybe, with the effects that we pile on here. But this particular little beat delay will give us a lot of flexibility. I just want to show you all the parameters I'm using. I left this at the default 1/16, and the time is at about 3/16, but it also sounds good at 2 and 4 and so on. It's just a less interesting rhythm. Of course, if you really wanted your build-up to hit right on the 4 by the floor rhythm, this 4/16 is very useful. But I use it at 3. It's a more interesting rhythm, and it's definitely noticeable. Next, I've added a phaser. This is really just for taste. It's going to give us a sort of harmonic content to what we're hearing. We can also play with these parameters a little bit. I like to keep the mix pretty low because we don't want to just have these oscillations. It's going to detract from the buildup effect. But if we turn up the feedback, we'll get even more of this content. Let's leave it the way that it was, more or less, and then I've added a lo-fi. So if you have the opportunity to spend some time automating these parameters, you can get some interesting effects. But the only parameter I've automated for this particular example is the bits. This is because when the bits are too low, you're going to hear this noise basically throughout. We're looking more for like a build-up effect as opposed to that constant noise. So I've automated the bits a little bit just by clicking and dragging right here. Then at the end, in order to get this to ring out just right and to have a bigger body of the content at the beginning of the bar, or since we're going to reverse this at the end, I've added a compressor. I've brought the threshold down to the point at which the ringing out of the reverb and the lo-fi effect die at approximately the right time. So let's look a little bit at how to manipulate this such that it gets reversed, but also ends up being an exact 4 bars, or whatever length that you might like. All I'm going to do here is, you can see that I have a pattern. It's just the one note at the beginning, and let it ring out. I'm just going to quick delete this group that I had going on, and click and drag the audio as if I was going to drag it to some other software. Instead, I'm just going to drop it onto a new group here. I'm going to mute the old group. All I'm going to do is I'm going to drop just a single note at the very beginning on the one sound we're using, and because I know that our length is going to be much more than 1 bar, I'm going to increase this to 4 or maybe even 8 bars. Here's what this sounds like. It should be exactly what we just heard. If we hop into sampling mode here, we'll notice that it took a very long sample all the way to the absolute noise floor. It sampled everything. But the sounds we're looking for pretty much die out after about, let's say, 8 seconds. So what we'll do here is we are going to first truncate this to about 8 seconds. I'm going to leave a little extra room because I'd rather have it be longer than shorter. Next I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom in real close and get it to be right about exactly 8 seconds. The reason that I've chosen 8 seconds is that at 120 BPM, this should be exactly 4 bars. You can of course use time stretching to fix this as well, but that may introduce artifacts and have some other effects on the sounds. I'll show you how to do that just in case, but first we're going to tighten this up and try to get it to be just about exactly 8 seconds. You can see I'm clicking and dragging up to zoom in super close and just get it to be exactly perfectly right. You'll notice that it's giving us these big numbers, and that's because its resolution for this truncating and other editing is very high. Here you can see that Maschine has decided this is exactly 8.00 seconds, meaning that it should loop perfectly to 4 bars at 120 BPM. So yeah, it does exactly follow the contour. I think that we may be hearing some of this noise floor too immediately. So what we're going to do is we're going to totally change up the contour we have here. This is a very gentle curve up, and we want it to be more extreme towards the end of the bar probably. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit normalize. It normalizes this whole thing, and it's going to be a lot louder, so watch your headphones. And I'm also going to click this fade out. You can fade out over a specific selection, like here or something. I'm going to undo that. But what we're going to do is we're just going to have the whole thing fade out, so when we reverse this, it'll go from silence to this big peak here. And we'll of course hear the opposite before we've reversed it. So let's hit fade out and fade this whole thing down to 0, down to silence. Notice how we can see that it dies out in the view meter and that we can hear it die out very clearly as well. The next step is very simple. We're just going to hit reverse. One other way to get it to balance to be exactly 8 seconds is to use this offline time stretching available in the Maschine software. When we hit stretch, we have the opportunity to stretch to specific musical BPM amounts that the Maschine software has detected. So it's detected that we want to probably stretch it to 120 BPM because that's our master tempo up here. And it's detected that we have exactly 4 bars at 120 BPM, so this isn't necessary. However, we will go back and use this to make a much longer build-up, let's say like 8 bars, but not just yet. At the moment, we're just going to hear exactly what this sounds like reversed. This is starting to sound exactly like what we're looking for, but maybe we needed a different length. Like, let's say instead of 4 bars, we needed it to expand over 8 bars. What we're going to do is we're going to hit stretch, and we're going to expand this length from 4 bars to 8 bars. When we apply this, it's going to introduce a lot of interesting artifacts and really make for a interesting build-up sound over a longer period of time. I consider this to be a really cool kind of glitchy sound. I guess it's sort of an extended technique in that we're using the failure of the Maschine software, the time stretchings introducing funny digital artifacts for a more tonal sound based on what's essentially white noise that we're hearing through a reverb. This, though, can be really powerful, and it works really well with the next thing that I would suggest to top this off. Let's say that you wanted it to ring out like this is the build-up and we're going to hear the drop, but we still want to hear some of this, maybe like a denouement or a, warm down or cool down from this big build-up. What we can do is we can just have a subtle compressor on there. Let's grab the metaverb and turn the mix down to about 14–15% and just hear what that effect has on this particular piece of audio. Of course, dialing in these different controls can also give us some more control about what this sort of ring out or cool down is going to sound like. So we could simply just bring up the size, and maybe even the mix as well, and get a bigger effect. There you have it. That is our quick and dirty, easy machine build-up sound. Make sure to check us out at machineschools.com and subscribe to us on YouTube for all our machine tutorials.